Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing in this pre-recorded episode on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media channels we're up on these days, Facebook.com/El Paso History Radio Show, other Facebook pages such as El Paso History, El Paso History TV, El Paso History Matters. The YouTube channel certainly is El Paso History TV, but also under similar Twitter and Twitch pages, those primarily under Andrew J. Polk. So today is Saturday, June 17th, and today we are talking about a lot of different aspects, but connected history, all kind of going through the New Mexico Museum of Space History, including the International Space Hall of Fame and their focus, and a lot of interest that's coming up with the outcome of a new movie, Oppenheimer, that very much features some of our regional history, particularly that of the Trinity Site and development all around it with the detonation of the first nuclear device in history. So we got a lot of ways that you can, of course, join us. We appreciate the people who chime in, let us know where they're tuning in from each Saturday over on our live streams, particularly on the social media channels. But in any case, this is the place where we say Texas history begins in El Paso. And we do have a history moment today at the top of hour 2 from documentary filmmaker Jackson Polk, talking this week about the history of the Sun Bowl and, of course, the game that shares the same name. So joining us here in studio today, we are joined by Chris Orwoll, Executive Director with the New Mexico Museum of Space History. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
And thank you very much, as always, for having me on.
Absolutely happy to have you on to talk about these things because, anytime I can, it's been a minute, I'll admit, that I've been able to head up to you all, but the, shining box on a hill is a basic, if accurate way to put it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that golden cube up there, which definitely, I love the glow of that thing in the sunset every day.
Oh, yeah. You know what I've never seen? I've always, going up there earlier in the day, so I've never seen it in the sunset, so that's something I got to do. But, unique location, unique area, and, of course, the unique history that we deal with in our region, because, you all are not even just focused on, when I was going there was a lot of, this is what was happening, versions of rockets, and, some mention of what was going on with, to date myself, the shuttle program at that point in time. But, of course, there's been a whole lot of things that have continued going on and a whole lot of changes in programming that you all have been constantly doing to keep up with it, right?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Always in our education programs, we're developing new demonstrations. We're developing new, whether it's camps, outreach programs that we do all over the state of New Mexico. Heck, we do it well into western Texas. We do a ton of stuff down here in El Paso and then also into western Texas. So that's a lot of fun with everybody. So, that's where we get most of the more current stuff. But even in our displays nowadays, we definitely try to cover more than just the entire width and breadth of the history of space exploration. So now we spend a lot more time talking about what's happening now as well.
Right, because we are in it's always one of those, will these be historic times? It's it's always, until we get I don't know. It was weird for me being in high school that September 11th was just beginning to enter into our high school history books by the time I got there to even further date myself. But it takes a little while for these things to start getting basically digested by both popular culture and then by arguably the history community. But y'all do a lot of work to kind of keep up with it, and kind of almost as practically as soon as the mission has happened, you're kind of all putting out feelers to be like, so you need all those spacesuits still, that kind of thing?
Oh, yeah, we're definitely working with the various companies trying to get artifacts out of it, whether that is SpaceX, whether that's Blue Origin, whether that's Virgin Galactic, etc. So trying to get that stuff out of them, especially with so much of it being proprietary information, etc.,
and still being used sometimes.
Well, it's all being used right now. So it gets a little crazy for that. So, but we have a lot of fun with that. Sometimes you have to go down the replica route, which we have done as well. We've done that with a couple of the spacesuits. With the newer stuff. So, it really depends on what the program is, whether it's NASA, whether it's commercial, et cetera. But, we've actually got a great collection. One of the neatest things that we're about to add to the collection is a little bit more historical, but it's one of the lunar test articles. So, essentially a full-on lunar module that was built for the Apollo program that was used for testing at White Sands Test Facility. That's coming to us in August. We don't even have a building big enough to display it on the campus yet.
Oh,
That's a few years down the road, but we're going to have it in storage over at our Museum Support Center, and then we're going to take special groups over there to be able to go ahead and see that lunar test.
Because, I mean, we do have an example of, for those looking over on our social media with all the pictures that we're popping up, this is a bit of an example of, well, what the grounds had looked like previously. There's actually been a lot of work that y'all are doing on the grounds due to both changes, like these kind of things you're mentioning, and also out of some necessity because of weather-related issues, right?
Yeah, a year ago in July, we actually had a major flooding casualty where there was a rainstorm that parked itself right over the mountainside above the museum. Boulders coming down through one of the arroyos dammed it up, and then it diverted the water, and it came through our rocket park, and it washed out all of the xeriscaping, the retaining walls, moved some of the artifacts. When I talk about artifacts in there, these are big items.
I mean, again, the example of it here, we've got, a lot of these, different test launch vehicles, including some of the engines here. So, I mean, there's all the artifacts intact at this point?
Yeah, okay. None of the, thank goodness, none of the artifacts were damaged. Moved, yes. Damaged, no. Okay. So they've all been moved out of the way. All the work is in progress now, repairing everything in there. Getting all, as people may see in the pictures here, the black rock no longer exists. It's all red now.
Okay.
New retaining walls, etc., and actually some new concrete pads as well, because we're adding in a whole new observatory out there as well for our astronomy programs, which are taking off.
Excellent. So, and no pun intended there, of course.
Actually, yes, pun intended.
Pun intended in this case here, because, again, y'all are focused on the education, commemoration, and even, again, preservation of the ongoing history there as well. So there's a lot going on, a lot that you all are focusing on, and, of course, galleries and openings and things that you'll have going on with that, but also summer programming coming up specifically, right?
Yeah, so this year we've done camps a lot in the past, so and then we came out of the pandemic, we stopped doing camps there for a while. We probably will start them up again next year. This year we're doing a series of outreach programs around the state. And so those are things that are arranged with libraries, with community groups, with schools. And so we're actually trying something very different this year. So whereas, with the camp programs, the problem there, it's mostly for the local children, local school kids. Because we don't do overnight camps. They're just day camps. So,
gotcha.
So what we're trying to do is see if we can create summer programs and outreach programs that reach out to more children throughout the state. So, it's kind of a new thing for us. And we'll see how it goes. We're planning on trying to increase the staff and bring back both camp programs and the outreach program next year. Right now, we don't have the staff to do both. So we're kind of trying the outreach.
And so, I mean, among the staffing and, again, even just facilities part of this you're all talking about, as much as, I mean, like, you've got the exhibits that exist within the building that we're talking about, but the building itself has, a level of, you got to make some choices with all of the stuff that you'll have. So you have essentially some warehousing, archive space for a lot of this stuff to be in while you're still deciding, like, how you're going to display it, among other things, right?
Yeah. Well, as you say, one of our missions is preservation as well. So we have tens of thousands of artifacts. A small percentage are on display in the museum. And the nice thing about having all those other artifacts is then we're allowed to rotate things out. But that also, we maintain a research library and archives, etc. But a lot of the things that are in our collection will probably never be seen by the public except for online. We're building all the imagery for that right now.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
But that is one of our charters, is to preserve items as well. And so we do have a large warehouse on the other side of town, very large. Which is also where we have a shop that we can work on exhibits and restoration. We have a boneyard over there. It's an outdoor storage area.
Oh, really? Okay.
We actually have ballistic missiles inside that boneyard, as well as aircraft, etc. And then we have an archives building on the campus where that's the climate-controlled area for the more sensitive items. If you just think like spacesuits and paper objects, fabrics, things like that require a lot more climate control rather than just sitting over in a warehouse.
Yeah, like not everything is done, like, again, even with the changes in the way you're putting at the rocket park, not everything can sit outside in the sun and weather and is, not clad in metal, among other things. And we've all have had some examples, including some of the popular culture examples, because not even just the, what has existed, what have been the artifacts, but also in the, popular culture, the different ideas and concepts of, like, speaking of, space suits, hazmat suits, etc. Those kind of things have also been, an increasing part of y'all's archive as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, in fact, actually, one of the fun things is this December, finally, we were supposed to open it last year.
Right.
I had a health issue with my family, so with my mom, and so I was out on family medical leave most of last year. So that delayed, we basically just pushed everything back a year. And so, in any case, the Sci-Fi Sci-Fact exhibit is finally going to open up this December, but we're still collecting for that one. And, the idea of that exhibit, a lot of people think about, just the space exploration side, forgetting that even like the Apollo astronauts, when they talked about what their inspiration was for getting into space exploration, Buck Rogers, to a person, they mentioned that. So that led us into, after we'd done an exhibit on Gene Roddenberry, and we had the very popular Star Trek portions of that one, people wanted us to keep that in, so we came up with the idea of science fiction and science fact, and how they're always influencing each other. So what does that allow you to do? It allows you to bring in a ton of stuff from the sci-fi world, which people make a connection to. You know, they can see that. They remember. If you talk to people in NASA now, so many of them were influenced by Star Trek. And Star Wars and things like that. So yeah, we're going to bring in a lot of those sort of things. So yeah, whether it's popular shows and movies, whether you know, Galaxy Quest, Star Wars, TV shows like Eureka, Warehouse 13. It just about everything is going to be in this. First editions of Jules Verne and H.G. Wells and Robert Heinlein. Things like that. And then trying to make the connection, maybe showing something that was in science fiction, and then something that came out of it and was developed into, in the science fact world. And then also talking about things like whether it's Passengers or Martian or movies like that, where developments that are happening in the real world are influencing what the people writing science fiction and creating science fiction use in their stories. So,
very true. I mean, a feedback loop definitely exists, because you got to have something exist, to bring it into reality, it has to be conceived of first. And so it's often argued that sometimes, in the best of circumstances, sci-fi can be, the first draft of future history.
Yes.
Sometimes. To borrow a phrase there as well.
Heck. Science fiction writers talked about, Lagrange points, where we park satellites and stuff. That was science fiction that became science reality, so,
Absolutely. Still working on that teleporter, though. But but again, some of the things that you all focus on, and a lot of overview of what they got going on at the New Mexico Museum of Space History. And, I mean, just a lot of things you all got going on. And some of the things we're going to talk about over the course of this couple of hours is, of course, the things that y'all got going on. Also, again, with the International Space Hall of Fame. But also, of course, y'all do those tours out at the Trinity Site, or a part of them. And, of course, a lot of interest in that coming up. And so we'll delving into some of that history, the development in our region, and how that also plays into other concepts like the New Mexico Space Trail. So, again, joining us here in studio right now, Chris Orwoll, Executive Director for the New Mexico Museum of Space History. Going to talk a whole lot more about that, their history, their events, and what they're doing with all of these subjects. So stay tuned. We're going to take that first break of this hour right now. So back after this with more on the El Paso History Radio Show here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
You are listening to the El Paso History Radio Show, streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Bainey, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archived pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com. You're listening to the El Paso History Radio Show, streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Bainey, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archived pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com. You're listening to the El Paso History Radio Show streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Baney, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archive pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing in this pre-recorded episode on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. We are the El Paso History Radio Show over on Facebook. Go there for our weekly promo announcements each and every week on the topics of what's coming up on the program in the coming week. Also, our YouTube channel, youtube.com/El Paso History TV, where you can find both these series, the shows that we got going on to previous ones, but also the entire series of El Paso Gold DVDs, covering more than the last couple of decades of history production in and around the region, uploaded completely for free for view at your leisure, plus the more recent 20 ABC7 TV series segments from El Paso History TV, kind of delving into topics, explorations, and kind of presenting these ideas of what may seem basic, but for the next generation. Bernie Sargent in front of the camera for a lot of that. I was behind it for a lot of it, putting together and doing the editing on that. You can also find us on some of the other partner pages we have, including Remember in El Paso, when they're on pause this weekend for the Father's Day holiday, but don't worry, we'll be back up there and probably posting as soon as they let us post again. In any case, also a reminder to support some of our advertisers that are very much involved with and supporting the continuation and exploration of El Paso history in both the area and the region overall. Of course, Pepe's Restaurant in Canutillo, open for in-house dining, 6761 Donovan Drive. You can call Pepe's at 915-877-2152. That's 915-877-2152 for their current hours and availability. I will not be headed out there this weekend, as I'll actually be out of town during our airing, but please make sure to support them and all of our advertisers helping keep the continuation and talking of El Paso history in our region alive. But again, joining us here in studio right now, we do have Chris Orwoll, Executive Director for the New Mexico Museum, Museum of Space History. And one of the things that realized that we touched on a lot of the aspects of what you all are doing out there, ongoing programming, exhibitions, how you all even think about it, trying not to directly steal from SpaceX or Virgin Galactic as much as it may be tempting to. But you all, of course, have other ways to come out and experience things, as much as the exhibits and the way that you have the layout of the museum is a very unique one. You also have that New Horizon Dome Theater and Planetarium.
Yeah, so just down the hill from the giant golden cube on the side of the mountain,
right?
Yeah, is our Tombaugh building, which has the New Horizons Dome Theater in it. We show both planetarium shows in there,
sure,
which can be either a movie or a live star show. And then we show giant screen films in there as well. So that can be just about anything, whether it's scientific. Can also be we do a lot of travelogue type films, where they take you to a location or an experience.
Okay.
Like in the situation right now, the two films that we've got showing, Serengeti and Astronaut Ocean to Orbit. I mean, no relation whatsoever between those two films.
Sure.
But yeah, Serengeti, telling the story of the wildebeest migration, the giant wildebeest migrations that occur every year across Africa.
Okay.
And not only, what the wildebeest are going through, but kind of why this occurs, what happens with nature, the other animals that they encounter along the way, whether they be predators or just other creatures. And the visuals in that film are absolutely stunning. As you can imagine, just think, sunsets in Africa and, large aerial shots of millions upon millions of wildebeest migrating, across the plains. And then the other movie that we're showing, Astronaut Ocean to Orbit, is telling about how astronauts train for doing spacewalks up in space. So, the two biggest ways, or really the biggest way, is the Neutral Buoyancy Lab, which is a gigantic swimming pool that they have down there at the Johnson Space Center, the Neutral Buoyancy Lab. And so they utilize that with gigantic sections of the space station, not the real ones, the replicas in there, that they can operate around, and essentially they're in a spacesuit. They're neutrally buoyant, so if you push off on something and you're in the water, you're going to move the other direction, just like you do in space.
So, it's not a 100% accurate recreation, because until we get those anti-gravity technologies finally up and running, we'll see what happens there. It still is it's the closest you can get, because, people may think, well, what about that plane that does that thing where you go weightless for a little while, the so-called vomit comets? Sure, you can get a little bit of the experience of what it is to be truly weightless, or at very least, again, the closest approximation you're going to get within the gravity well. Anyway, that one only lasts for like a minute at most, 40 seconds?
Yeah, 30 to 40 seconds. So, and if you can imagine the nightmare that they went through in Apollo 13 when they filmed that movie, and they had to do each of those scenes in tiny little segments because they were using that vomit comet to provide that microgravity, So people think up in space, they're weightless. No, actually, it's still a gravity environment up there. You're just experiencing microgravity because of the way that the spacecraft orbits around the Earth.
If you want to get technical about it, you are falling as fast as you are moving it forward as fast as you are falling.
Bingo, basically. That's exactly it. Yep, so if you could shoot a bullet that could go fast enough that it was constantly falling down at the same curvature of the Earth, that's essentially what you're doing when you're orbiting the Earth.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons that was sci-fi. You go back to Jules Verne's and them talking about, the very old sci-fi, even though it seems old-timey at this point because it was black and white, Journey to the Moon and things like that, of them just using ballistics, of just, all right, let's just go as fast as we can, and if you find that sweet spot, you won't escape the, orbit, you won't escape the gravity well, and you'll be in just perfect harmony with it, which is another one of those reasons that the increasing study of basically orbital dynamics and the amount of stuff that's up there already is kind of one of those frontiers that, particularly once we get into, as we're also talking about, the space race that is going on regionally, that's like microsatellites are a feature, but the more stuff we get up there, there's some interesting possibilities.
Yeah, crowded skies is a big issue, and that's why, the Space Force and, the scientists, the government, tracking all those objects that are in space. It's a big deal for the space station nowadays and spacecraft that are up there because, an interaction between two objects flying at 17,500 miles, per hour, both of them going that speed, potentially colliding at 35,000 miles an hour. Even a little tiny piece of dust does damage, let alone something slightly bigger, which can completely destroy a satellite or spacecraft, and we've seen that happen. They have to move the ISS with some regularity nowadays to avoid some of the objects that are in space, and it's getting more crowded every single week.
Because, like you mentioned there, it's tempting to think of, we can even see sometimes when the conditions are right in our region, the for lack of a better term, space caravans that like SpaceX is putting up, the trains of it. So at least one of the launches, I'll have to see if I can pull up the picture here in a minute that I caught from a parking lot that I was in, of them doing one of the launches where, all of the, maneuvering thrusters and the separations were then beautifully on display. Our night sky, but because it was high enough, it was still catching the sunlight, that kind of a thing. So and then you think about it, that sometimes all that stuff even being ejected, some of that is, just, general material, just, the off gases, what have you, but any of the little particulates. So it's tempting to sometimes think of, oh man, we've launched that many things. Like, sure, there's definitely a lot of objects that have been launched whole up there, but any that have broken apart, the micro debris, the material, like a screw or a bit or a piece of a panel, anything like that is then its own object and its own very dangerous thing. Because on terrestrial, it's tempting to think of, speed means how much something is moving towards me or away from it, but once you get up there, it all becomes relative. So something that can seem like it's standing still from one perspective can be moving, like you said, thousands of miles an hour to the perspective of a different object up there.
Yeah, and it's amazing. You have to worry about things like, just think about an astronaut going on a spacewalk, an EVA. If a small particle, that really they don't think too much about, but if it hits, like, just say one of the handholds and puts a ding in the handhold, and then they grab a hold of that with their glove and tear their glove, that's a bad day. That's a very bad day for an astronaut, So, and you don't think like a hole in the spacecraft can be the only problem. It can be a whole myriad of issues. So damaging to satellite panels, or just a tube, that happened on one of the Russian spacecraft recently. So one of the Soyuz spacecraft had a refrigerant leak that was caused by a micrometeorite that hit the spacecraft and blew out that hose. So,
that's a lot of it. So to get back to what y'all have, of course, the film and the museum Astronaut from Ocean to Orbit. This is some of the stuff that has to be dealt with and featured in there. So those are some of the other ways people can come out and experience what you all got at the facility.
Yeah, and that giant screen dome is just so much fun to see a movie. It's not 3D, but you get that feeling because it surrounds your entire vision. So that's the nice thing with the giant screen films. And then obviously when you're doing a night sky show where you're showing what the sky looks like now, and also some of the deeper space, you might be like exploring the moons of Jupiter, et cetera. But people love seeing what's in the night sky, what are the stories behind the constellations and things like that. And so we do a number of, we do 5 live star shows every day as well now too. We've gone to a complete, everything now is 30-minute shows. It works extremely well, and the public has really liked it because there's more showings available for them for these different types of programs, whether it's the films or the shows.
Excellent. So again, that's Chris Orwoll, Executive Director for the New Mexico Museum of Space History, talking about their programming, ongoing events, etc. Got to take that next break right now. So coming out of this break, talk a little bit more about, again, the marking and preservation they're doing and the ongoing events, the space race in our area. So stay tuned for more on the El Paso History Radio Show after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
You are listening to the El Paso History Radio Show, streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Bainey, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archived pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com. You're listening to the El Paso History Radio Show streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Bainey, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archived pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com. You're listening to the El Paso History Radio Show streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Bainey, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archived pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing in this pre-recorded episode on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under El Paso History, El Paso History Radio Show, El Paso History TV, or Andrew J. Polk, depending on where you're looking at there. Of course, we want to mention some of our other great partners in talking about and promoting different aspects of El Paso's history, including the great group over at Celebration of Our Mountains, primarily active over on their Facebook now, facebook.com/CELEBMTNS. Just search Celebration of Our Mountains and you'll find it up a little bit easier there. That's a throwback to their abbreviated URL that they've had, but you can also find them online, Celebration of Our Mountains. Similarly, always posting about different and interesting things, and also hosting tours. And if you really want to get involved with them, they're bringing back kind of both branching out and returning to their roots by bringing back the last Thursdays of each month meetings out at Arduino Desert Crossing at 7 p.m. So that coming up this month, the last Thursday being the 29th. So they meet at 7 p.m. Arduino's Desert Crossing to talk about the tours, upcoming events, and about the things that they got going on with them. So if you want to get in touch with them in the meantime, again, they do have the Facebook page, but then also their returning president, Philip Goodell. That's Philip philipgoodell43 at gmail.com. So PHILIPGOODELL43 at gmail.com, the way to find them. Of course, got to mention one of our other great sponsors and promoters of El Paso history on this program, Economy Wholesale Grocers, with 2 locations in El Paso, 1500 East Paisano and 411 North Zaragoza. Economy Wholesale Grocers, cash and carry, proud supporters of the El Paso History Radio Show. But again, joining us here in studio right now, we do have Chris Orwoll, Executive Director for the New Mexico Museum of Space History, talking a lot about the programming, ongoing events, and the, I'm not going to call it tomb raiding, but because it's not in that way, but the very much what can you give us and how soon can we get it type of situation going on, as you all are marking it again, continuing to preserve almost as soon as it's done being used, or even beforehand. I'm sure you wouldn't mind when it comes to what's going on with the space race, the modern version of it, the billionaire space race, as it's sometimes been getting called, both the aspects going on, kind of across the region. I mean, we got a lot of it around us, but a little bit further on, like, of course, SpaceX down, further towards the Gulf Coast here in Texas, Boca Chica and those areas, but then on either side of us, conceptually anyway, both up in New Mexico and then a little bit further east in Texas, right near us, we've got, of course, respectively, Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin.
Oh, yeah. So in any case, the commercial space realm, business, whatever the heck you want to call it, is alive and well. So we're seeing huge amounts of not only operations but growth in our area. And actually all over the United States, and
that's true.
All over the world. So I was just down in Florida a bunch this past winter, and the amount of construction going on down there is just mind-boggling. And we see it around here as well with, the growth of, whether it's Virgin Galactic up at Spaceport America and them about to start really getting into, frequent flights with paying passengers.
Right.
And then we got Blue Origin, 2.5 hours from us, where we are at the museum, just the opposite direction.
Oh, sure.
And what they're doing as well, with their New Shepard spacecraft and the suborbital flights. And then they're building up for New Glenn flights out there in Florida, launching at Cape Canaveral and then at Kennedy Space Center. But yeah, and then what SpaceX is doing with the new Starship, to me, that is just absolutely phenomenal. What they've already managed to do with the Falcon rockets has been, absolutely transformational in the space realm. But, Starship now, with what's going on with its launches just down there, not too far away, down at the southern tip of Texas, I think is going to be just as revolutionary once they finish getting through all the little quirks and issues. And
I mean, yeah, we've had some notable things going on in, in news media, including the one that, did blow up, but was still considered overall a success because it's that more than incremental, but the stepping stone movement towards it. No, there wasn't it'll blow up when you're on it, it's fine. No, but it's okay, we've got everything up to that phase and now we can work on that next stage of it, essentially, in a very basic kind of aspect of it, because getting it more and more figured out. When it came to the Falcon rockets themselves, we got that one great picture that we popped up there of them landing 2 at once in one space, and there was one point in time in the last couple of years that Elon Musk, in his case, tweeted out about the rarest thing in the world, a returning and reusable rocket booster, because they usually don't do that.
Yep, exactly. So, and what your folks, were seeing there in that picture with the two boosters landing side by side, that's straight science fiction becoming science fact.
Like, I have seen, movies that show that exact type of scenario
that exact
happening.
Thing, So, and that's one of the fun things that we're trying to tell in that new exhibit as well.
Sure.
So, but yeah, there's so much going on. There's actually a couple of neat things. If you take a look at what's going on in the commercial industry right now, it actually harkens back to the 1950s and 60s, and how frequently we were testing, having problems. Remember how much discussion there was about Flopnik and all the explosions on the pads that was going on?
Sure.
But we were progressing along. Guess what the commercial industry is doing now? That exact same thing. They're willing to accept that risk, not with people on board, but with the rockets themselves, the engines, and the testing. The other thing that you see going on right now, so we're living through a very historical moment. If you go back 100 years ago, what was kind of on the cusp of becoming somewhat routine?
Right.
Aviation.
Exactly.
But it was still a rich person's playground at that point in time. And so they were still learning and trying to figure out, commercial airliners didn't exist at this point in time 100 years ago. Well, commercial space liners don't exist at this point as well, but it sure looks like we're headed that direction. As I think about it, my kids are going to experience, more affordable space flight in their lives because of what's going on right now, So that's a very neat thing. And hence, like you said, why we're trying to collect these items.
Sure.
As they get utilized now, because there also was a big problem during the Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo programs where they were developing these different programs and moving through them so quickly that a lot of stuff just got thrown away.
Oh, okay.
Thrown away and not preserved. And so sometimes it was accidental, sometimes it was technicians. I mean, we've got EKG strips on display in our collection that were John Glenn's heartbeat when he flew that first orbital flight and wrote a book about it eventually, so of all the letters he'd got,
Sure.
So I heard your heartbeat. In any case, though, but because they threw them away in the dumpster, and one of the techs dumpster dove them afterwards, and now they're on display in that big case that you see there in the picture online.
Because I mean, if you're having what do we need to do next? Let's get the technical things figured out. You may think okay, let's just this is used. We don't need it anymore. Let's get it out of the way. And then it takes someone being like, wait. No, hold up. That one's important. Can we get that, like that aspect? So that's the kind of role that you all are playing, or trying to anyway, when it comes to this. Even if again, there's a lot of technical considerations and stuff still in use.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, we're talking to Boeing about Starliner and some of the spacesuits, because Starliner is supposed to land and actually has already twice in the Tularosa Basin within view of the museum. And then we're also talking with Virgin Galactic about getting spacesuit and engines from their spacecraft. They're very positive about that, and we're going to get some, here
Excellent.
in the near future. So yay! And then we need to do the same thing with Blue Origin and SpaceX with their suits. We're working right now on a replica of a SpaceX spacesuit. So there's just issues there with trying to get permission from them, etc.
Sure.
So yeah.
I mean, again, a lot of in-process things, and I mean, the tech keeps moving along here. One of the interesting things that always strikes me when we're talking about the way it works here, I mean, people may be thinking, okay, so what's going on here versus, Gulf Coast, Florida, those kind of things, that basically that some of the more commercial aspects of it and low orbital, or not even suborbital would be the better way to put it, is what's coming here, because the phrase that we've used previously is that first mile's free, because coming up here, but the real heavy stuff, like anything we're talking about with like the Starship or the super heavy lifters, that are very much in, I think, some recent contracts, in fact, even being awarded for that, specifically for more of the, let's call it, industrial scale use of space technology, both for governmental and potential, commercial aspects of it as well. You want to do that over water for the most part, is the way it kind of works out.
Well, when you're talking about launching vehicles going up into orbit or going up into deep space, you're going to have multiple stages. And so if you're going to be dropping stages back towards Earth, doing that over land is a little problematic. People don't like big, gigantic rocket stages landing in their backyards. And so that's why a lot of the stuff here locally is suborbital. But there's still the work on single stage to orbit that is going on. And so that eventually, if that becomes truly a reality, then you might see more of those type of launches from this high altitude, because then it starts to make sense. But yes, in the current situation, whether you're talking about SpaceX's Falcon rockets, whether you're talking about Blue Origin's New Glenn, whether you're talking about, Starship launching in Boca Chica, those are multiple stage rockets, and you got to launch them near water and just dump those stages down into the water where they sink down into it. So because, once again, Starship is part of NASA's goal to get to the moon. That's a big piece of it. It's basically half that program.
Yeah, no, that's true. And some of the, again, exciting developments coming with this. But again, joining us here in studio right now, Chris Orwoll, Executive Director of the New Mexico Museum of Space History. Got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, a little bit more on their preservation and upcoming exhibits. So stay tuned for more on the El Paso History Radio Show after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
You are listening to the El Paso History Radio Show, streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Baney, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archived pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com. You're listening to the El Paso History Radio Show streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Bainey, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archived pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com. You're listening to the El Paso History Radio Show streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Bainey, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archived pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com.
Welcome back to the El Paso History Radio Show, airing in this pre-recorded episode on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. And, of course, got to talk about some of our other partners in talking about different aspects of local and El Paso history, specifically Rick Kern's music podcast, Talk and Rock Radio. Find him over at talkandrockradio.com. That's talkandrockradio.com. With a whole lot of memories, remembrances, different commemorations, and talking about performances, acts that came through the area, the venues that they used. One of the most recent ones with the Box Tops on The Letter Made Me Cry Like a Baby, and also previously Rick Levy, the busiest musician I know, and Grenade Duffy, Hot Blues on the Emerald Isle. A lot of remembrances and a lot of things that they talk about over there. So go check that out again at talkandrockradio.com. That's talk, androckradio.com. But again, joining us here in studio, we do have Chris Orwoll, Executive Director for the New Mexico Museum of Space History. And of course, with a lot of the stuff we're talking about with the, exhibits and promotions, you got all of events that are coming up. So we had mentioned one of the exhibits that has been, it got a little bit delayed, but is now going to be coming online, the Sci-Fi and Sci-Fact, all of the things that go into this. And people have been able to see versions of this going on for a little while, maybe not even totally just in the museum, but you've been out like in the community showing this off previously, right?
Yeah, definitely. So we've been out in the city of Alamogordo. We've been down here in El Paso at one of the Comic-Cons, and then we've had items up, and still do right now, up inside the museum, where we've got some of these spacesuits, whether it's Joyce's suit from Stranger Things, whether it's Mal's suit from the movie Serenity and the TV show Firefly,
or one of the actual suits that you wore.
Yeah, that's a yeah, that's a sad picture. That's all I'm saying.
But showing the exhibits and the ones that are from fiction, like you're talking about.
Yeah,
here.
exactly. Yeah. So we've got from the Big Bang Theory episode where they sent Howard Wolowitz up to space. We've got one of the suits from that as well. So and then we've just picked up suits from For All Mankind, Galaxy Quest. We've got a number of different ones. Starship Troopers. Iron Man. We've got a bunch of stuff. We don't have one of his suits, but we have a costume from the film. But in any case, just trying to kind of show the width and breadth of science fiction, and we're still collecting a lot of that material. But yeah, so that exhibit is going to open up in December. But we're actually starting to put elements of that exhibit in place now. It'll kind of phase in between now and December, and then by the mid-December when we open up the exhibit, then everything will be fully in place and we'll do an official opening at that point in time. But yeah, the first thing that's going to go into the exhibit is the new spacesuits. And so we've got 6 gigantic clear plexiglass spacesuit cases that are going in that area. And so those will go in and then over the summer. And that will be the first part of that exhibit. If you don't mention the Star Trek stuff that's already in there, and we've already got all that really neat Star Trek stuff where we've got the transporter pad and we've got props from the original TV show. I mean, if you're for your folks online, they're seeing the actual Tribble and the Enterprise encased in acrylic from the Cat's Paw episode. That was their Halloween episode one year. And so those, those are a lot of fun. People love seeing that, and trying to keep those items in place is why we came up with the science fiction, science fact, the sci-fi, sci-fact exhibit concept. But that's one of 3 exhibits we're trying to open up this year. Yeah. So the other 2 are actually revisions and remodelings of existing galleries. So our Rockets, Missiles, and Motors gallery, and then also our satellite gallery, which you probably don't even have pictures of because it's been dark for so long.
Right.
But in any case, in the satellite gallery, some of the neat things in there is that right now being constructed for us, and it will be installed at the end of the summer. So we may actually have to open up the gallery area early. Is a whole new interactive that has to do with satellites, sensors, and selfies. And so it gives you a chance to see yourself in both visual, infrared, and ultraviolet lights. And so kind of the way that different telescopes, different satellites look at either Earth or a planet or deep space objects, it shows you why they do these different things, because visually you may not be able to see something, but with infrared you may be able to see through dust and other things like that. And see heat signatures, etc. So that'll be one of the fun new additions in the satellite gallery, as well as a whole exhibit on GPS in that gallery that we're working with the Air Force on as well. So because they have done so much of the development for GPS and the creation for it, I should say now the Space Force.
Of course,
In any case, though, and then the other gallery, like I said, is Rockets, Missiles, and Motors. And the first thing that we did for renovating that gallery was to close off all the windows. In the gallery, there was 100 feet of windows all the way around. The building is absolutely beautiful from the outside, but not so good for the objects on the inside with all the windows.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so some of the galleries, if we want to put more sensitive objects in place inside those galleries, think spacesuits, think think things that are cloth, paper, etc. We have to close off those windows. And so, from the outside it looks the same, but from the inside of the gallery, all of a sudden now you have closed off the windows. You now have light control, so you can highlight objects a lot better. It changes the dramatic look of the gallery as well. You don't get as much, like in one of the images there, you can definitely see the light on the outside, which is beautiful view.
Yeah.
We still have the overlook up on the 5th floor of the museum. But you don't need that on every single floor, and you need to help preserve the object.
Yeah, kind of the example between this one on one of the maneuvering vehicles, previous examples you've had, to then that gallery of human spaceflight. The way that the lighting is just different there on its own.
Yeah, and that gallery used to be also 100 feet of windows on each on the across the entire front of the gallery. So, and there's no way on God's green earth that we would have put spacesuits in there with the New Mexico sun shining in on it in the afternoon. In fact, actually, there is one spacesuit in there on display that was getting indirect sunlight through a small opening, and we use that to actually show people the damage that sunlight can do.
Degradation that can happen.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So because we have the pictures of what it looked like originally and what it looks like now, and so it's one of those things that everybody learns over time, kind of thing. So and the museum learned a lot of years ago, but the damage was already done, So
but now can have a teaching purpose, so it's not totally lost there anyway.
Yeah.
So, tell you what, we got to take that next break right now. Again, Chris Orwoll, Executive Director for the New Mexico Museum of Space History, joining us here in studio right now. We got a lot more they're going to be talking about, particularly getting into the second hour of the program, because, of course, a lot of interest coming to this area, to this region in a slightly different way with the upcoming Oppenheimer movie. And that is something that you all focus on as well, and certainly have tours and other features on. So we're going to talk more about that, but got to take that break to make for the top of the hour news. So stay tuned for more on the El Paso History Radio Show after this, that top of the hour break, and then, of course, our history moment coming at the start of hour 2 out here on the what we're talking with, continuing on with the New Mexico Museum of Space History, again here on the El Paso History Radio Show on News Radio 690 KTSM.
You are listening to the El Paso History Radio Show, streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Baney, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archive pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com. You're listening to the El Paso History Radio Show, streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Baney, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archive pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com. You're listening to the El Paso History Radio Show, streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Bainey, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archived pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com. You're listening to the El Paso History Radio Show streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Bainey, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archived pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com. You're listening to the El Paso History Radio Show streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Bainey, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archived pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com. You're listening to the El Paso History Radio Show streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Bainey, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archived pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com.
Welcome back to the El Paso History Radio Show, airing in this pre-recorded episode on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under El Paso History, El Paso History TV, or the Remember in El Paso When partner pages like that, but also, again, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, the main ones that you can find us on there. But starting off hour 2 of the program, as we usually do, with a history moment from documentary filmmaker Jackson Polk, talking this week about the history of the Sun Bowl.
The large football stadium on the campus of the University of Texas at El Paso is the Sun Bowl and is home to the UTEP Miners football team. The Sun Bowl name was first used for the annual bowl game now played in the stadium, and the first game was on January 1st, 1935, as a fundraising event for a local service club, and has evolved into one of El Paso's top national attractions. The Sun Bowl Stadium opened on September 21, 1963, and was originally designed to hold 30,000 spectators. The second deck on the press box was completed in 1969, and in 1982 extra seating was added. The present seating capacity is 51,500. In 1963, on the first play from scrimmage at the original stadium, Miner running back Larry Durham bolted 54 yards for a touchdown against North Texas State University. The Miners went on to score a 34-7 victory over the Eagles. Durham became a successful businessman and gave back to his college. The 65,000 square foot Larry K. Durham Sports Center opened in August of 2002 and forms the north end of the Sun Bowl Stadium. It features a computer center, a sports medical center, locker rooms, and exercise facilities where all UTEP athletes train. In the early years, the annual Sun Bowl game was played on January 1st, the same day as the Sun Carnival Parade. Since 1969, CBS has televised the game annually. The game date in recent years has fallen in late December. The game and related events are sponsored by the Sun Bowl Association and attracts many visitors to El Paso. The national TV exposure is a major plus for the city. The Sun Bowl is also used for music concerts, monster truck shows, and other events. The Rolling Stones had a concert there in October of 2006. I'm Jackson Polk with this history moment for the El Paso History Radio Show.
Also taking this moment to mention some of our other great partners in El Paso history work, including specifically Barbara Given-Baney, operator of the great Facebook group Remember in El Paso When. You can go there for archive pictures galore. More than 34,000 members as of last check, just hitting that 34,000 mark there. But please remember, the administrators have worked hard in researching photos with our history attached, so if using, sharing, talking about their photos, they do ask that credit be given to their site. They are on pause this weekend, so we won't be posting up this episode there, but we'll as soon as they come back off that hiatus for the Father's Day holiday. But of course, they do have to give a lot of credit to the particularly Chief Admin, Owner, and Historian Barbara Given-Baney, affectionately known as BGB, along with admins Rick Duncan, Rick Nahara, Margaret D. Smith, Jim Gerber, and moderators Ben Vincent and Dan Graves. As it takes a lot of, it's no mean feat to keep such a large group on task and on track, and so they're always looking for a few more good hands and eyeballs on the situation. So if you want to reach out, become a part of them, or again, join them after they're off the pause for the Father's Day weekend. Remember in El Paso When, the Facebook group Remember in El Paso When. But again, joining us here here in studio right now. We still are sticking around with Chris Orwoll, Executive Director for the New Mexico Museum of Space History. Thanks for sticking around with us here for hour 2 of the program.
Not a problem at all. Love being on.
Absolutely happy to have you on to talk about these things, because as much as there's a lot of things going on in and around the museum, some revamping, some renovations, some repairs in some cases having to go on here, which is glad it can be repaired. Let me just put it that way. But of course, there's been a lot of other interests. I mean, popular culture, ongoing media, talking about, the trying to preserve, if not quite take it off the landing pad as soon as it landed, with some of the local and renewed space race things. There's been some hearkening back to previous events and major and monumentous things that happened right in our region. So it's been coming up for a minute now, but of course we have, within about a month of the time that we're recording this, it's the expected premiere of the Oppenheimer movie by Christopher Nolan, starring Cillian Murphy. And so this one, there's been a lot more kind of discussion coming up on it, it feels like, around the region, and I'm sure that y'all are getting some interest / feedback on the anticipation of this, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And we're anticipating even more interest in some of our programs, most specifically the tour, which I think we'll get into here in a second. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, we're very excited. And a lot of the entities, i.e. museums in New Mexico, are very excited about this movie coming out. Once again, it's a Christopher Nolan film. Sure. It's got an absolutely phenomenal cast. Mm-hmm. So we're expecting probably a lot of people are going to go and see this movie, and it will generate a lot of interest in the region, in the stories of the region, and what happened back during World War II, specifically with the creation and then the detonation of the first atomic bomb. Yeah. And so, not only us, but also the Nuclear Museum up in Albuquerque, Los Alamos itself, and some of those entities throughout the state that where locations were where these things went off. And Alamogordo's always had a direct association with the Trinity Site explosion, because when it came out in the news media, it was, Alamogordo was the closest quote-unquote city. Even though it really actually isn't the closest city, it's what got associated with it. And a lot of that had to do because the explosion actually occurred on White Sands, on the proving grounds. At that point in time, and the proving grounds were associated with Alamogordo. So we do help tell that story of what happened at Trinity. And, one of the biggest things that we do every, twice a year is the tour with the buses that we take up there. Interest is already increased on that one, and we expect it to explode after the movie comes out.
Pun intended there as well, I'm sure there. Because, the Trinity Site itself, the marker that people may have seen in popular media and in other postings out there, it would otherwise be a rather nondescript location, if not for the significance around it and the monument that has been now out of there, built out of, among other things, some of the remnants of the detonation itself, right?
Some of the rocks in the area, although actually there are pieces in there, but don't think that those big rocks are pieces from that. No. So that's the Trinitite there's still Trinitite out there on the site. Right. You can still dig down in the ground and find Trinitite, and for your listeners who may not understand what Trinitite is, when they exploded the atomic bomb, it was on a 100-foot tower, but as it exploded, it pulled up, as you can imagine, a lot of the dirt that was in the area, took it up into this extreme high temperature cloud that was up above it, and then eventually it rained back down, so it's melted rock, essentially.
Yeah, that iconic mushroom cloud, that's just the thermodynamics at play there. What it is that, we're talking about the best way, the more poetic way I like it being referred to as, is a tiny piece of the sun touching down for a split second, because we're talking about, nuclear fission happening, similar type of processes. And so that releases, a whole lot of things. Radiation often gets talked about, but in the instant of it, it is a massive amount of light and heat. So what happens there, the mushroom cloud, the iconic nature of the mushrooming of it, is that heat going on. And that's why then you talked about it in like civil defense terms of fallout and things like that, because sure, the initial detonation will definitely damage or destroy things in the immediate vicinity and further on, depending on the kilotons or megatons we're talking about when it comes to the actual devices themselves. But then that heat, both the iconic films that show of the detonation of it and the further on test that happens and showing its impact on structures and things like that. Yeah. There's both the notable push, the initial both the heat wave hitting and then the shock wave, but then there's the draw back in, because as it rises, you get this huge mass of air that is going up into the upper atmosphere at that point, and so it draws things back up with it. And that's where then, again, if we're talking about in civil defense terms, the fallout concerns, because all that stuff has to, what goes up must come down aspect of it. So, yeah, Trinitite itself is, not this black rock looking things. These are basically the desert rocks that are out near there, and including from the view from space. This is the area where the Trinity Site actually is. If you look very, very closely, you can still see some of the kind of where the red arrow is, for those looking with us online, the discoloration of the immediate area around where the detonation happened. But otherwise, there's a lot of, this is near some of the, historic lava flows and areas like that. So there's a lot of that black rot out there. Trinitite itself looks more like glass, so to speak.
One side of it does. One side of it looks just like dirt rock, kind of thing. The other side has a melted green glass look to it. Yeah, so, and that's because of when it fell down, so the bottom side and the top side, that's what was going on, as it came back to Earth. They collected most of it at the time, and it's stored, it was stored out there. So, but there's a lot of it out there that's still even available for purchase if you want to, so at one of the Blanchard's Rock Shop, which is right up near the actual site of the Trinity explosion. So yeah, kind of a neat thing that's still available to the public even today. Strangely enough, as far as memorabilia. Now, if you go out to the Trinity Site and you dig it up and walk away with it, that's a federal offense.
Ew, okay, so don't do that.
Don't do that. Yeah,
Absolutely
don't do that.
Not.
But yeah, we're excited to take people out there, every year.
Absolutely, because again, you do this again twice a year, so the next one coming up on October 21st, and the registration is going on, and it's also some of the reservations are already being considered well into 2024 at this point.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we're almost filled up for this fall's tour. There are still some spots available. But
as we're recording, anyway.
Yeah, as we're recording, it's filling up very rapidly, and I have a feeling after the movie it will sell out very quickly. And we've already got booked a lot of seats on our buses in April. So we the way that it used to be always the first Saturday in April and the first Saturday in October. They've left it with the first Saturday in April. White Sands Missile Range has, but they've moved the one in the fall. People may be going October 21st. That's not the first Saturday.
No,
it's actually the third. They moved it away because the federal, the fiscal year starts in October, and they were running into problems with one of the events being on October 1st, and so they moved it to the third week. So hence the reason this year it's on October 21st.
Okay, I guess it's a reason if a weird.
So in any case,
one.
but yeah, we take 6 buses out there. We have tour guides on every bus. We have lunches that are catered in for it. We do tours inside the museum. We have film showings. So it's really a neat experience for people to be able to drive through the missile range to get out to the site. That's a kind of a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
That's true as well, because as much as there's, some museums and things out there and things that can be, of course, seen from the road, particularly if you're going through, the gap up there, just east of Las Cruces, but to really go out there and get anywhere near some of those facilities is a different thing entirely.
Yeah, exactly. So not allowed to take any pictures as well. We actually regulate that pretty heftily on the bus. We did actually have an incident with somebody trying to take a picture from one of our chase vehicles and did get pulled over by the base police.
Wow.
So, yeah, in any case, though, but yeah, kind of strange little things. But, people who go on the tour just absolutely love it. It's a comfortable way to do it. It's a chance to drive out there.
Sure.
You got a restroom on the bus. It's nice and comfortable. You got somebody telling you not just the story of the first explosion, the first atomic bomb, how they developed it, who was involved, the locations, etc., but also telling about the geology and the history of the area as well. So they get all of that, and it's kind of everybody that we've talked to, seems to really enjoy it. So, and that's why we fill up 6 buses every single time.
And again, I'm probably going to be filling up pretty quickly on this one because, again, with that movie coming out, again, about a month from when we're recording now, that's I just going to ramp that up to 11. I have a full expectation.
Well, it's actually 29 days, 17 hours, 32 minutes, and 29.32 seconds. They actually have a countdown on their website, that's just like the countdown for the Trinity.
Which in context is a little ominous, I'm not going to lie.
Of course, for your visitors, it'll actually be or your listeners, it'll be 28 days because
Yeah.
it's coming out tomorrow.
Absolutely. But again, yes, when we're recording and not. But again, that's Chris Orwoll, Executive Director for the New Mexico Museum of Space History. We got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, talk a little bit more about that history and the device, and again, the history that can be seen by going out to the Trinity Site itself. But taking that break right now, so stay tuned for more on the El Paso History Radio Show after this here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
You are listening to the El Paso History Radio Show streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Baney, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archived pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com. You're listening to the El Paso History Radio Show streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Baney, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archived pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com. You're listening to the El Paso History Radio Show streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Baney, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archived pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on YouTube.com.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing in this pre-recorded episode on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch.tv, either under El Paso History Radio Show, El Paso History TV, El Paso History, or Andrew J. Polk in some of those ways. I want to tell you a little bit about what we got coming up for you next week on the program. Next week, we're going to be joined by a local military historian, John Hamilton, talking about specifically the history around the Columbus raid that we just had a couple months ago, the anniversary of, I believe, happening in March. So talking about the specific military history and, of course, impact that came from that. So join us next week on the program for that one. But again, joining us here in studio right now, we do have Chris Orwoll, Executive Director for the New Mexico Museum of Space History, and talking a little bit about those Trinity Site tours that are also organized specifically also through the International Space Hall of Fame and the Hall of Fame Foundation, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. So it's the International Space Hall of Fame Foundation is the support organization for the museum. We're a state museum,
sure,
so we get our funding through the state, but for a lot of things, whether it's fundraising, whether it's events, things like that, doing that through the state is impossible. So we have a support foundation, and this is one of the events that they do, just like the 4th of July, and other things like that. In any case, this is one of the things they put on. They organize it. We participate in it. We assist with it. We provide tour guides. We provide a lot of, the museum opening materials and things like that. But it's really their event. So yeah, and they put on a great event.
Absolutely. And so of course we got a couple of events that are going to be coming up besides some of the other programming. But we have some 4th of July events themselves that are going to be going on in and around the museum itself, right?
Yeah, exactly. We have the annual fireworks show that we do in conjunction with the city. It's actually the city's fireworks show. We host the launch site. So what better place than a space museum to be the launch site, besides which it's up on the side of the mountain.
Exactly.
So it's very visible then for everybody throughout the city and really throughout the basin to be able to see the fireworks launch site. And then this year for our members, the foundation is putting on a big event, a big bang event where there's going to be vendors that are going to be up there. The museum is going to be open up to the members of the International Space Hall of Fame Foundation, and then there's going to be opportunities to have lunch with an astronaut, essentially. Yeah. So Danny Olivas, an El Paso connected, very obviously.
Absolutely.
Astronaut is also connected with our museum. His wife is on our foundation.
Oh, okay.
And so in any case, he's going to be up there, and people are going to get a chance to have a meal and get a chance to ask him questions, talk to him, meet, greet, etc. So yeah, a very fun opportunity for the members of the museum. So if your listeners want to participate in that event, they got to join the foundation, and then they'll be able to purchase tickets to come on up and view the fireworks as well from up there at the museum. Mm-hmm. Very different thing to watch fireworks from up above where they're being launched from. So yeah, on site. Very fun. Very fun.
Absolutely. So again, we've been mentioning some of these places you can find information, but of course for the New Mexico Museum of Space History, their website is nmspacemuseum.org, but it's also linked on this site. But if you want to find it for the International Space Hall of Fame and the Foundation, it's spacehalloffame.org, so spacehalloffame.org, and you can find any information on there. On the actual tours that are going on themselves out to the Trinity Site, like we've been talking about, or a lot of these upcoming events, including the Big Bang Festival, the Dinner with an Astronaut, and the July 4th Extravaganza Drive-In that'll be happening again on July 4th itself. But then you've got some other things coming up that are also part of the museum itself as well, like the Launchpad lecture series and Science Saturday, right?
Yep. So Science Saturday is one of the things we do locally. We do it at one of the pizza places out in town, Pizza 9. And it's a chance for younger kids to come in. We do science demonstrations where they actually get hands-on.
Oh, okay.
So that happens once a month. We have our first Friday lectures, which we call a Launchpad lecture.
Sure.
And, it depends this past month because of this month being the 20th anniversary and the 40th anniversary of, actually I got the dates wrong in any case though, but it's the anniversary of Sally Ride's flight, first American female in space, and Valentina Tereshkova. She flew in June, back in 1962. So in any case, the first woman in space. Both of those anniversaries are in June. So we did a lecture, Launchpad lecture on Sally Ride and Valentina Tereshkova this upcoming month on that first Friday at 9 a.m. Coffee and donuts provided. That's always a big draw.
Absolutely.
In any case, though, we just change the topics, periodically. In fact, my brain is I just lost what the topic is for this upcoming month. It'll come back to me.
I'm sure. We'll mention it a little bit later because there's a lot of stuff going on out here and a lot of moving parts involved with pretty much everything we're talking about here. So, again, all this information people can find online. And, again, either spacehalloffame.org for the, again, International Space Hall of Fame and Foundation. And, of course, the New Mexico Museum of Space History at nmspacemuseum.org for NM as in New Mexico Space Museum.org. So a lot of ways people can find information and find those topics, among other things, if they are wanting to find out more about any of this.
Yeah, and then also obviously on our Facebook pages, we got Instagram, we've got a YouTube page where we're constantly putting on videos for people, where it's either lectures and information on a specific history topic or demonstrations that our educators are doing about different science topics, and those have been hugely popular. Some of them we've actually gotten hundreds of thousands of views on some of them. So, yeah, a lot of fun.
Absolutely here. So, again, joining us here in studio right now, Chris Orwoll, Executive Director for the New Mexico Museum of Space History. Going to continue talking about, again, some of the things they got going on and the specifically that tour, the Trinity Site tour, not a demonstration in that case, very much importantly not so, but, of course, what happened there, part of the history that is going to have a lot more focus coming onto it and our region when it comes to the, upcoming movie Oppenheimer, but we'll talk a little bit more about that after this next break, so stay tuned for more on the El Paso History Radio Show after this break on News Radio 690 KTSM.
You are listening to the El Paso History Radio Show streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Baney, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archive pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com. You're listening to the El Paso History Radio Show streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Baney, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archive pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com. You're listening to the El Paso History Radio Show streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Bainey, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archived pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com.
Welcome back to the El Paso History Radio Show, airing in this pre-recorded episode on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or on our social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso on the El Paso History Radio Show, or Andrew J. Polk, depending, with, of course, a full video that is available with them. And, of course, we have to remind you about some of our other great partners in promoting both this program and El Paso history in general. Specifically that of El Paso Inc. You can see our promo announcements, usually in the B section, just about every week. But, of course, you can find their unique, original, and in-depth reporting going on and focusing on our region. So El Paso Inc., El Paso's business journal, is available for home or business delivery. To receive El Paso Inc., order online at elpasoinc.com. One of the features coming up, actually, in this recent edition, or the upcoming edition of El Paso Inc., will be the obituary for Nick Hauser, previous guest on this program, and, of course, a contributor to different aspects of El Paso and our issues and focuses here in El Paso. So much condolences to his family, part of the venerable Hauser clan here in El Paso, including, of course, his brother, John Hauser, and among other things, founders of the 12 Travels Memorials of the Southwest Project. So, again, condolences to his family, and find, again, that obituary in this most recent edition of El Paso Inc. Some other events we want to mention coming up here, that coming up a little bit later, including going on today, the Make a Thing event out at the McGoffin Home State Historic Site. But a little bit later on, they'll be having their Brain Trust Brown Bag Lecture Series on June 21st. And, of course, their cooking classes and ongoing things there. So plenty of stuff going on in and around with history in our region. But again, joining us here in studio right now, we do have, of course, Chris Orwoll, Executive Director for the New Mexico Museum of Space History, and talking a lot about your programming, upcoming events, and things going on here. So, of course, the tour for the Trinity Site, I mean, it only happens every twice a year, like we mentioned already, as it was, because I remember hearing back in the day that, well, there's concerns about the conditions out there. And that's, I mean, there's not really a thing, but it's on a active testing military facility.
Yeah, that's
the primary thing.
Yeah, that's the big reason, is it's security issues, because White Sands Missile Range is a very high security area. So they don't want the public traipsing around there all the time. So the compromise that essentially they came to was that they would open up the site twice a year. It's a big security nightmare for the folks out there at the missile range. So it's still very nice that they allow us to take the caravan out there that leaves from Tularosa, drives up through the missile range, gets to the Trinity Site, and then we actually leave through the Stallion Gate and come back.
Down
through the highways, through Carrizozo, etc. So, but yeah, it's one of those things that for security reasons they have to limit the amount of time that people can spend out there at the range.
Absolutely, because I mean it's a big area, but a lot of testing. I mean, anyone who's driven across, I forget what highway that is, the one that is there, not the bypass, but the highway more, I guess, directly from say Las Cruces out that way, that sometimes has the shutdown notices on it.
54 going across.
Yeah, is that 54 there?
Yeah, 380 up to the north where the Stallion Gate is, going between Carrizozo and San Antonio kind of thing. So, yeah, those two highways get shut down very frequently for missile testing and other types of testing that go on out there as well. Yep.
Of course, I mean the way I refer to it is that when you take Fort Bliss, McGregor Range, White Sands, and Holloman Air Force Base into consideration, you have the largest single contiguous military reservation of space in the continental United States.
Easily, yes, very large, yeah, huge, absolutely massive. Each Fort Bliss and White Sands Missile Range are in the top 10 just by themselves.
Exactly.
You know, when you combine the two of them, because they do butt right up against each other, then it just becomes absolutely massive. So, and you know, it's still one of the fun facts, you know, is that White Sands Missile Range is one of only 2 places in the United States that own all of the airspace from ground to space above them. One's the White House.
No, sure.
And the other is White Sands Missile Range, which is why where I live there in Alamogordo, just north of it, you don't see commercial aircraft flying over our area at all.
That's true.
You see it very rare times when they shut down for a holiday, you know, around Christmas or Thanksgiving and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, the airlines must love that because then they can save a lot of gas flying over the missile range. But normally they have to fly around it.
Interesting. So that must help with the star parties, though, I got to say.
It does. Yeah, it helps. It helps the dark skies in our areas and also just noise. Now, that being said, we have Holloman Air Force Base, so we have F-16s flying around us all the time. So noise-wise, we probably have more.
Yeah, probably give and take kind of situation there. But so, okay, the Trinity Site itself as it goes into, and so this picture, in case we didn't accurately describe it, this is a view from space taken by an astronaut with, again, the red arrow pointing directly to the actual site itself. But so the situation is that this is, again, all surrounded by, and even in this picture, the wide out view that it is, again, the military reservation and area for White Sands. But again, the issue with, and the reason that that one site exists, and again, the monument that is actually on it, is because of this not so little device, but maybe different size than people think of. This was the device, the gadget, as it was called, that was detonated at the Trinity Site that effectively started the nuclear age.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, the folks out there, as part of the Manhattan Project, which strangely enough was named after the Manhattan Military District. That's where it got its name.
Oh, okay.
Because that's where the project was headquartered and started. In any case, though, they came up with the code name Trinity for the actual explosion itself. In any case, though, so they had to go through trying to figure out how to create a nuclear weapon. They came up with a couple of different concepts for it. One was kind of the gun type, where they, you know, basically shot 2 amounts of material at each other. That one they knew was going to work. Then there was the other one. General Leslie Groves actually kind of gave them the idea of the implosion type weapon. That used plutonium. The other one used uranium-235. This one used plutonium-239. They weren't sure that one was going to work exactly, where you put a lot of explosives and you everything points towards the center where your material is. You light off everything at one time, and it basically implodes the fissionable material on the inside and causes that chain reaction, where you get millions of billions of reactions going off at once, creating all of the heat and the atomic explosion. So they had to create a bomb. They called it the gadget. It was just a simple term that they utilized for it. That's what they actually exploded out there at the Trinity Site, and they had to test that one because they weren't sure if it was going to work as expected.
Yeah, and so this one was an implosion type device,
yes,
right?
This one was an implosion, plutonium-239.
And so I think the major implementations of the 2 different types you can see there would be then in the eventual use in anger and in war of those types of devices, you know, the little boy and the fat man, those, you know, dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, respectively.
Yep. Yeah, so the Hiroshima was one of the gun-type weapons. They were certain that one was going to work. It was actually a little bit smaller, so they used, you know, that was little boy. And then Fat Man actually was dropped on Nagasaki. That was an implosion-type weapon. But by this point in time, they tested it out there at Trinity, so they knew it was going to work. And so, so that's, you know, the gadget up there, you know, it looks a little bit different than what you see that was actually dropped because they didn't have to worry about bomb casings and carrying it in an aircraft, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly, and or of arming it in flight, as there have been interesting films that demonstrate that as well. Because if essentially what they're trying to get past here, as has been, it had been being developed, like the story about the first nuclear reactor test that was being done closer towards the beginning of the century, but like in the 1930s, they had the first critical masses being achieved and self-sustaining reactions. Because getting down to the basic, at that point, theoretical physics level, is the idea of a reaction happening where these very heavy elements split and create enough that they go into hit other versions of it and they split themselves, and that you have a right formulation of it, the right materials, the right processing of it, and the right just in relation to each other, that then becomes self-sustaining. And in the reactor way it works is you have that it has a controlled way, but in this case you reach critical mass and it goes beyond that, into which you are creating large amounts of, again, light, heat, radiation, huge amounts of energy being released by the splitting of these atoms.
Yeah, exactly. So, and if you think about a nuclear reactor, it's a controlled fission.
Exactly. Control being the key part.
Control being, which is why you have control rods, et cetera. So, fission was discovered in 1938, and then the first fission events here, essentially in the United States, were done up in Chicago with essentially piles of bricks and fissionable material inside, very, very in the basement of a building. Yeah. So a little bit strange, but early days, you learn. In any case, though, and so they came up with this the idea of fission in the late 1930s. And then it was very quickly discovered or thought about that you could actually create not an uncontrolled, but essentially a high energy fission event, i.e. an explosion. And so the physics of it, the theory of it, was not the big problem with what they were dealing with up there at Los Alamos and in the Manhattan Project. It was the engineering of, how do you make this such that you have a device that can do this, that could be delivered,
right?
And safely, et cetera. And so that was the big problem, creating this actual event occurring. So the engineering of it was what they went through, and what the struggle was for the many, for essentially the 3 years that they worked on this program. So.
Absolutely. And so, of course, Oppenheimer, he's probably the next most, Einstein often gets referenced a lot of these kind of things on the theoretical aspects of it here. Military leadership, like FDR, of course, gets mentioned this year. But, in terms of the actual people building, creating, doing the technical work with this, and this is the actual picture of Oppenheimer from those contemporary times. And I would say that Cillian Murphy is pretty close there from that. He has that same kind of gaunt look, I will say.
I think that was very well cast, and Nolan and Murphy, that they work very well together,
Yeah, so. I will say they're kind of a representation on the actual poster for it there. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. They have essentially a version of the gadget being shown back there. So I think we can count our lucky stars for this region that Nolan's slavish adherence to a reality and not using CGI did not involve him actually detonating an item out here, which there was discussion of. I'm just saying, if only speculation. Anyway, but so that device actually coming through, I want to say Oppenheimer previously, and well, of course this movie will have its own implications, but previous to this would be most famously associated with the quote that he had upon the detonation of the device, that I am become death, destroyer of worlds.
Yeah, so and that comes out of the old Hindu scriptures, so the Bhagavad Gita, excuse me. Once again,
Sure.
Kind of just trying to remember that out of history. So, but yeah, the god Vishnu, actually taking on his form, which had multiple arms,
right.
etc. And he was trying to essentially persuade the prince that he should do his duty. And so he takes on this form, and then he says, now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. Oppenheimer remembered that from his readings and everything, and after he saw the explosion, that was one of the quotes that was attributed to him, was saying, now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds, because of the power of this weapon and the potential of it.
And they had a lot of considerations towards that. Not that anyone would think that anything involving nuclear weapons is exactly like glib type talk, but even at that point in time, and as much as considerations exist until in this moment, in this day and age, with mutually assured destruction, proliferation, rogue states, all those kind of things, at that point in time when they were still just testing this, there was maybe not a huge concern, but a concern at any level about that even just the detonation of this device, beyond just okay, let's see what this new bomb does, of it having so much energy release that it could do something of one of the more extreme theories that have been put forth of setting the atmosphere on fire.
Yeah, so there was a lot of, once again, you had tons of physicists working on this program. Some of the top minds throughout the world in that field, working, talking, researching, etc. So yeah, there were a couple of folks who were sitting there saying, well, this could ignite the atmosphere. If you think about it, gigantic reaction like this, creating fissionable material within, the vast majority of folks thought, no, that's not going to happen. And as we know, it didn't happen. But yeah, it was one of those things that was thrown out there as a possibility, similar to the Hadron Collider, create, the possibility of when they lit off the Hadron Collider overseas in Europe, that they were going to create a black hole. And, there were physicists who said, yeah, that could happen. And, theoretically crazy, if strange situations happened, yes, it could. But yeah, in any case, though, with the bomb itself, most of the concerns, though, with it really had to do with, how much power is it going to put out? How much radiation is it going to create and put out? Those were the biggest concerns that they were, worried about, and hence why they had so much monitoring out there as well when they actually lit off the bomb.
One of the stories I've heard, and I've not actually found this good or like substantiated enough or not, is that they weren't even really aware of the electromagnetic issues that could come along with this. They're primarily concerned with just the release of energy, and that the electromagnetic pulse that's talked about nowadays, and one of the bigger issues that comes for the idea of any modern society having any nuclear implications happening to it, that it might be one of the things that could have more damaging impacts than almost anything else we're talking about here, was something they didn't even expect at that point in time.
No, they did. There were a number of things that they didn't expect. Yeah, that was just one of them. So, and obviously they discovered, even as we continued doing tests after World War II, and that's when most of the testing was done. Nevada, overseas, in the South Pacific, up in the upper atmosphere, with the explosions. When they detonated some of those things, yes, they had learned that there had been electromagnetic, issues from the explosions. But when they detonated in the atmosphere, it created a lot more problems that back then wasn't necessarily such a big deal, but nowadays could be a huge deal because of our electric grid, because of electronics, and things like that. So yeah, but they didn't know what they didn't know. Similar to spaceflight. First time we launched humans and animals into space, we didn't know what we didn't know. So learned as it went along.
Yeah, there was an aspect of, will people be able to breathe in zero gravity? That was questions at those point in times. Any of those kind of things. And I mean, one of the reasons that's, even that we call it the atomic age, is not just this technology exists. It literally exists within the geologic record now of the differences of level of just ambient radiation out in the environment. There's literally an industry that goes down and from World War II tries to find like shipwrecks to get that steel, because of the way that blast furnaces work nowadays and the way they bring in atmosphere, and so that ambient radiation and those particles that exist everywhere, that for them to create certain types of surgical steel that need to have certain components and lack of radiation within them, if they're using modern steel, it has more. So they go back to some of that pre-forged, again, the Trinity Site test steel, because there's a need for that. And that's one of those examples of the changes that have happened because of this, beyond just even politically and historically.
Oh, yeah. So, and not just, if you think about, atomic fission, think about, what with reactors and things like that, and energy that's, we say clean, yes, Chernobyl. Can be very bad things coming out of it. But clean if done exactly right. So Navy, I was a nuclear submarine officer, so operated nuclear reactors on board the submarine, and so our aircraft carriers, the submarines, been operating for forever, with zero issues, and so it can be a great thing. And in the case of an atomic weapon, can be an extremely deadly thing. So.
And again, certainly changed a lot of things in a whole lot of considerations. But got to tell you, I got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, talking a little bit more again with Chris Orwoll, joining me here in studio, Executive Director for the New Mexico Museum of Space History, closing out the show and tell you what we got coming up for you. So stay tuned for more here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
You are listening to the El Paso History Radio Show, streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Bainey, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archived pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC 7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on YouTube.com. You're listening to the El Paso History Radio Show streaming on Facebook, where you can find archive radio programs. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Chief Administrator Barbara Gibbon-Bainey, known as BGB. Check out that page for thousands of archived pictures and videos of El Paso history. Remember in El Paso When on Facebook. The El Paso History Radio Show also streams on Saturday mornings on our YouTube channel, El Paso History TV. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV for archives of the El Paso History Radio Show. Also on that YouTube channel, you can see for free many other videos, documentaries, and lectures about El Paso area history at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. Additionally, watch a dozen TV documentaries about El Paso history for free there on our YouTube channel. This includes Legends of El Paso's Mountains, Gunfights of the Old West, El Paso's Waco Tanks, Mexican Revolution sites in El Paso, and 8 more TV documentaries produced by El Paso filmmaker Jackson Polk since 2001. And at youtube.com/El Paso History TV, you can watch for free 20 short videos we produced that were broadcast on ABC7 KVIA TV newscasts. This series is called El Paso History TV and features Spanish missions and churches on El Paso's Mission Trail, plus the Guadalupe Mission in Juarez, Mexico. That church was built in 1659 and is the oldest known adobe building on the El Paso Juarez Valley. It still welcomes Catholic worshipers today. Go to El Paso History TV on youtube.com.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing in this pre-recorded episode on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk, and again, joining us here in studio has, of course, been Chris Orwoll, Executive Director for the New Mexico Museum of Space History, of which there has been many different aspects, many ongoing things, and many events, and of course, one of the things I want to specifically mention, those tours to the Trinity Site, the ones that are already being booked for October, and already also as well into next April, going on through, it's right on the front of the website there right now, actually, upcoming event, Trinity Site Guided Tour, reserve now. Definitely a bit advice, because as we are anticipating, again, the release of the Oppenheimer movie and the events that happen right here in this region, in our broadcast area, it's probably going to be a lot more interest, and people maybe even coming from outside the area to come see this kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, we're expecting, actually, I think the state of New Mexico is expecting a lot of travel coming into the area, with people wanting to go up to Los Alamos, people going to Albuquerque to check out the nuclear museum there, coming to Alamogordo, taking the tour, visiting our museum. We're expecting a lot of tourism coming out of the movie. Once again, the fun thing part of the movie as well, a lot of it was filmed in New Mexico as well, so in fact, actually, the Department of Cultural Affairs, which our museum is part of, they filmed some of the office scenes for the movie in the DCA headquarters area. So strangely, redid it up to look like World War II, etc. So kind of strange connection there as well. So, but yeah, so we've got the Trinity Site tours that we do every April and October. The one for October is mostly booked up. There is still a few spaces. So if people are interested, book now. It's probably the most relaxing way to get out there, the most fun way to get out there. And in fact, April is already starting to book as well. And once the movie comes out, we're expecting there to be a bit of an explosion in.
I expect that entirely. And of course, the tourism in this issue all over, because beyond the New Mexico Museum of Space History and of course the International Space Hall of Fame and Foundation, there's of course the New Mexico Space Trail that this is all part of as well. So probably a lot more interest in all of these type of related things.
Yeah, that's one of the things, if people who are on our site, if they want to take a look at what our other locations throughout the state of New Mexico, and oh, by the way, we're trying to work this out so that like Colorado, Arizona, us, and Texas work together and create a Southwest space trail, because there are so many sites throughout the entire Southwest. In any case, though, they can go onto our website and take a look and see the spaces. Some of them are not open to the public, that just FYI, they're historical sites that may not be available to be visited. But a lot of them are, and it has all the connective information. It has the background on those sites, what happened there, why it's part of the space trail. And then also, if you want to visit it, where you go to figure out, exactly how to visit it. So you could actually take an entire tour through the area and visit a lot of these very fun sites where they, trained astronauts, where they tested engines, where they launched this, that, or the other thing, where they exploded a nuclear weapon, where they built it, all those sort of things that really have to do with Oh, once again, what does blowing up a nuclear weapon have to do? Well, that whole fission type idea, we even, it all plays into space travel as well, so in any case, but yeah, so all of those are part of the space trail. That's just one of the things that we've kind of created to help people learn about the history of space in this region. Absolutely.
So again, all that information, the things we've been talking about here, two main websites for you, nmspacemuseum.org, that's nmspacemuseum.org, and of course spacehalloffame.org, where you can find out information on this, the tours, their ongoing events, because even outside of this and the excitement towards this movie coming out, you'll have a lot of ongoing things and new exhibits that are going to be opening up throughout this year.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. If people come back, especially this year, about every 3-4 months, you're going to see something new, because we are constantly going to be phasing in, these exhibits on these 3 floors of the museum. Then next year, guess what? We're going to be working on the 5th floor of the museum, and that's going to be a complete revision of that entire floor. Not just an update, but a complete revision of it. So, yeah, over the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to see a lot of changes of the interior of the exhibits as we do a complete update of the museum.
Excellent. So, there's a lot more that we can talk about here, but of course, you want to see it for yourself. The New Mexico Museum of Space History up there in Alamogordo. Again, just look for that nice big shining box on the hill, and you'll find your way there. Do you ever have people just be like, I just kind of followed the view up there? Or
that's exactly how most people, they just follow the giant cube.
Wow, that does work out there. But if you're looking for it, of course, again, information, how to book things, and all of that over on their website at nmspacemuseum.org. So, again, joining us here in studio has been Chris Orwoll, Executive Director of the same. Thank you very much for being here with us today to talk about all the different things going on, the history surrounding it, and the excitement that you all are expecting and building with a whole lot of this here today.
Absolute pleasure. Love being here. Ask me to come back anytime.
I appreciate it, certainly. And thank you all for having joined us here for the El Paso History Radio Show. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. We'll do it again next week, as we do every Saturday morning, 10 to noon, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, next week, going to be talking again with John Hamilton, a local military historian, about the Columbus raid and its impacts and significance in our region. But not headed out to Pepe's again this week, as we're going to be out of town here actually as we're doing this airing. But in any case, want you all to have a great weekend, and we'll see you all next week on the program.